Good day. Welcome to the Inclusive Education and Specific Difficulties Conduct class for examination in August. My name is Regina Carisas. I'm your tutor for Inclusive Education. And this is both for pre-primary, junior primary, senior primary, and senior secondary courses that are specializing in inclusive education. We will go right through our session, what we're going to do through this. The prescribed material, try to consult both the study guides for the pre-primary and also for the ones for junior secondary and senior secondary. So consult all the study guides when you are doing your preparation for the examination. The textbooks that you can consult are the Lensberg, Reiser, and then the sector policy on inclusive education. The sector policy, if you don't have it in your study guides, you can Google it also. You can say Namibia sector policy on inclusive education, and then you'll get it on internet. Landsberg, there's a new edition out of 2015, so you can also get that one. And for Raisa is also the same goes for him. You can also Google him and find him on internet. Other reference material, you can get it from your IOL officers, resource centers in your region. And again, if you need more information, it is very advisable also to go on internet, Google, and find out about those concepts. The assessment policy for this course, it's a continuous assessment policy per semester that consists of one assignment and then that marks for a module of 10 credits. And then 50% of your continuous assessment mark is required for your admission to the examination. And then we don't do practical works, but some of you did practical work that requires 60% of pass mark. And then of that 60%, only 50% of it is for the continuous assessment mark. Now, the assessment criteria now here, it refers to the examination paper that we will discuss now. What we are looking for is that you must demonstrate that you have the ability to reflect, critically evaluate, and analyze your experiences with regard to inclusive education. Now we will look at applications and then your knowledge and understanding of that given exit learning outcome. Practical skills in application is demonstrate that you have read a lot and have developed the understanding of inclusive education, impairments, and the supporting techniques. The knowledge, every knowledge forms the foundation of every subject. So you need to have understanding that can link policy and practices and critically reflect on educational issues. That's now our assessment criteria when we mark the examination question papers. Now we go to the examination format. It's got 3 sections, section A, B, and C. Section A, it's out of question 1 and 2. Section B is question 3 and 4, and question C is question 5. Now we'll go through each and every one of them, one by one. Ready? Let's start with question 1. Question 1 is out of 15 marks. This question will put forth basic concepts that needs to be defined. Now, these basic concepts, you will find it all over your exit learning outcomes. Basic concepts such as if you want us special needs education, define special needs education. And each definition will constitute around 5 marks. So it means in question 1, there are 3 questions. There are 3 definitions that you need to answer. The tip that we can give you here is to write down all the concepts in every exit learning outcome and try to define those concepts and try to get the understanding about those concepts, and not just to do a rote learning, but to understand what those concepts mean, because those concepts will guide you as you form the foundation in each unit that you are studying. Question 2, it's out of 30 marks. Questions may come from exit learning outcome 3, which talks about general features and techniques of working with children with special educational needs. The example on how to study here, what I can give you is to say, Take, for example, Down syndrome. Write it down. Write down the main signs or features that shows that this child is having Down syndrome. Write down at least 5 supporting techniques of Down syndrome. So it means you write down the main concept or the main impairment, which is Down syndrome. Then you do a mind map actually of that impairment, and you say what are the signs or features that one can say, as we call them, the warning signs that can give you an indication that this child is having Down syndrome. And based on that, then you write, how can I support the supporting techniques for this impairment? If you do that with all the impairments in Excellent Learning Outcome 3, then you will have a good foundational knowledge of all the impairments, and you don't need to complain to say that there's too many of them, because you don't know what kind of a question might come. And if we go back to application, you won't know what kind of a child you might have in front of you that you might help. So it is good to have a good foundation of all the impairments and to know them. And then another question will come from Excellent Learning Outcome 1, which is the focus is on special needs and types of special needs that are in special needs education. Now, what is special needs? What types of special needs are there? And what kind of educational setting can these learners be placed of? So in Excellent Learning Outcome 1, you will find these 3 questions coming out of that. So within that setting, try to focus on what is special needs, what type are they, and how can one support or place this child in education. If one talks about placement, then it also talks about accommodating this child in a classroom. So those two concepts go, it can be used interchangeably. So don't get confused if a question is asked about accommodations and then placements of the learners. Another tip here, it's Excellent Learning Outcome 1 is thoroughly, and you need to study it very thoroughly, and because it sets foundation for you to knowledge and application when you are answering a question. So try to spend at least 30% of your time on Excellent Learning Outcome 1. Try to master everything that is in there. And then from Excellent Learning Outcome 2, it's where we need to discuss the international perspectives and legislations that protect the rights of special needs individuals. Now, the guidelines that I can give you here is to work out the conferences that led to development of these legislations. Write down Salamanca Conference, write down Education for All Conference, and try and find out what was decided on these 2 conferences. And then bring their relevance to Namibian context. In terms of, in Namibia, what do we term inclusive? Why do we want education for all? What led to it? So write down those basic things that was discussed at these international conferences that develop the legal framework that we have now contextualized in our context, that we have now the inclusive education policy in Namibia. So work it out and always bring everything back to the Namibian context. Bring it back to the classroom setting, because we really want you to apply your knowledge and not just have head knowledge, but application must come also. Question 3, it's 15 marks, and this is an application question. You will get a case study here. Very importantly, read the case study thoroughly and answer the questions that follow. The case will be based on the Excellent Learning Outcome 5 that states, explain the causes and techniques of working with physically impaired learners. There is around 4 to 5 physical impairments that are in that Excellent Learning Outcome 5. Then do the same thing. For example, cerebral palsy. Write down the causes, at least 5 of them. Write down 5 supporting techniques. How can I support a child of cerebral palsy if he's got a stiff hands? How can I help this child to write? So if you write down 5 causes and then 5 ways to support, then you've got a good knowledge of that physical impairment. Let's go to question 4. It's 30 marks. This question is having about 3 application questions that will come from Excel Learning Outcomes 6 and 3. The application questions 6 your own understanding, 6 for your knowledge, and then you need to give a discussion or explanation on certain area of knowledge that you know. The guidelines that we can give you here in question 3 is for you to write out the main outcomes, establish your own understanding, and state at least 5 facts and your own experiences and knowledge about a given field of questions. So it means each question weighs about 10 marks in question 4. And here it is straight a knowledge question in an application question that you need to answer. Here I can't give you much guidelines than to say, again, thoroughly study both Excel Learning Outcomes 6 and 3 and write down, as I mentioned, the main outcomes that are there. In question 5, it's also 30 marks, and each question weighs about around 15 marks. And it's a knowledge application question that will come from Excel Learning Outcome 8 and Excel Learning Outcome 5. If you look at Excel Learning Outcome 8, the main outcome of that unit is for you to know the system of individual education plan for learners with special needs. And from that unit, many questions can come based on the IEP. And then Excel Learning Outcome 5, it's again looking at the physically impaired learners. There again, it's a courses and techniques of working with the learners with physical impairment. Those are all our questions in this unit, and I wanted to give you some guidelines on how to answer the examination questions. In examination, there are different levels of questioning. The questionings can be either you create, you evaluate, you analyze, you apply, you give understanding, or it can be remembering questions. Now, when we talk about remembering questions, it's a very low level questioning that will ask you, find, list, name, define. Understanding questions will seek discussions from you. Will say, explain, summarize, paraphrase. Now, application questions, because our questions might go up to application and a bit of analyzing here and there. Application questions seeks information that you know and how you are applying that knowledge. It can say apply, it can say draw, it can say solve, it can even say use your experience to give guidelines on how the learner with intellectual impairment can be supported in a mainstream classroom. Then you need to know both from Excel Learning Outcome 8 and from 5 and from 3 how you can interlink that information and give us your answer. So based on the level of questioning, you need to answer your questions. And this level of questionings are based on Bloom's taxonomy. Again, when we talk about remembering, example that might be less different physical impairments. Understanding seeks to say, explain why Salamanca's statement is important for Namibia for special needs education. Application questions can say demonstrate. Analyze questions can say distinguish. And a question that evaluates your knowledge can say propose, because it seeks your understanding. And then when we want question of that you need to create something, it's to say judge. There we look for both for positive and negative elements of that concept, to say judge whether inclusive education is a good thing or a bad concept. And then you need to defend why you say it's good or why you say it's bad. So based on this Bloom's taxonomy, we will be asking you questions. And again, remember, as I mentioned earlier, application, understanding, and remembering questions will come in. And in your assignments that we are currently busy marking, there will be comments on how you are answering the assignment questions. Try to use that comments. Try and apply them. And when you are answering, try to answer a question, read the whole question through. Don't just look for a main verb or a main concept that defines it, but read the whole question through that you can understand what is being asked. In examination, the important thing that you need to remember is that the levels based on the application, understanding, and remembering, around 95% of the questions will constitute those concepts. So the application of that will come in. On your left-hand side, there's a Bloom's level of understanding and actions. Study the diagram. It will also give you some guidelines on how to answer the questions in the examination. That is all for the questioning. My contact details, you can see the email is rgarises@gmail.com. The cell phone number 08127140037. And during the weekdays from 7 o'clock up to 8 o'clock. And weekdays comes from Monday up to Thursday. And Saturdays from 3 o'clock up to 5 o'clock. Thank you very much. That's my contact details. And the motto of IOL here is that we believe that education is the greatest equalizer. And it's an equalizer for us in Namibia to become somebody. So I would really urge you to sit down and study and get knowledge, get understanding, get skills that we can equalize ourselves in the country, in Namibia.